My child, stop what you're doing and listen to me, for what I am about to speak carries the weight of heaven itself. You have walked through fire and wondered if I even saw you burn, but I did. I watched you break, and yet you passed my hardest test. This is not a story of failure, but of triumph hidden in pain. Do not rush past these words. They are the echo of my heartbeat for you. What you thought were you undoing with the very proof of your becoming. Now, listen closely. This is your divine revelation. I watch you, not from afar, not as a distant deity looking down upon your struggle, but as a father whose heart ached with every silent tear that slipped from your soul. I watched when your hands trembled from holding on too long, when you whispered prayers that never made it past your lips because you thought they no longer mattered. You believed I had turned my face away, but child, I never blinked. Every sigh you breathed in the dark was heard in my courts of glory. I watched you break, not because I found pleasure in your pain, but because I saw what you could not see, that the breaking was not your end, but your awakening. When you thought the silence meant I had abandoned you, I was closer than your breath. I watched the weight that pressed upon your spirit until you thought you would shatter, and in that sacred moment, I marked your endurance. You see, I do not measure strength by how loudly you stand, but by how faithfully you stay when all strength is gone. I watched you remain when walking away seemed easier. I saw the nights you turned your face to the wall and whispered, I can't do this anymore. And yet, you still rose. That rising, fragile and unseen, was worship. You were surrounded by noise, opinions, expectations, the clamor of what others thought your faith should look like. But I was watching the quiet places, the hidden battlefields inside your mind. You fought wars there that no one applauded, victories no one celebrated. I saw when your prayers shifted from bold declarations to broken pleas, and I did not despise the change. For when you pray from your breaking, your words carry a fragrance that all of heaven recognizes, the scent of surrender. I never stopped watching, not for a moment. My gaze did not turn when you failed, nor did it soften only when you succeeded. I watched with the constancy of love, steady, unwavering, eternal. Even when you questioned me, I did not step back. Even when you accused me in your confusion, I held you closer. My watching was never that of a spectator. It was that of a redeemer tracing every fracture of your heart with purpose. And in that watching, I saw something greater than your pain. I saw your becoming. I saw faith not built in triumph but in endurance. I saw trust that grew roots in darkness, deeper than what daylight faith could ever produce. You thought you were unseen, but you were the focus of heaven. Every angel paused to witness a mystery they could not understand, a mortal heart breaking, yet still believing. And so I say to you, I watched you break, but I also watched you live. And that, my beloved, was the beginning of your victory. I saw what others could not see, the weight you carried when no one was watching. You wore strength like a garment in public, but beneath it, your soul trembled under the heaviness of battles fought in silence. You smiled when your heart was breaking. You comforted others while secretly aching for someone to understand you. And you kept moving when you wanted nothing more than to stop. I know how it felt when the world assumed you were fine because you never complained. But I heard every unspoken cry that echoed inside you. The weight was not just in your circumstances. It was in the quiet expectation you placed on yourself to always hold everything together. And I tell you now, I never asked you to carry it alone. Every burden you bore was seen by me. The financial strain you tried to hide, the disappointment you never voiced, the loneliness you disguised with laughter. I counted them all. Each burden became a language between us, a silent prayer I understood even when words failed you. When you whispered into your pillow, "God, I can't keep doing this," I did not turn away. I leaned in closer. My heart was moved not by your perfection, but by your persistence, the way you kept believing that somehow, some way, I would turn it for good. You thought your endurance went unnoticed, but all of heaven recorded it. There were moments when you wondered if I was asking too much of you, and I want you to know, I saw that thought. I saw the fatigue in your soul, the ache that made even hope feel heavy. But child, do you not understand? The weight was never meant to crush you, it was meant to carve you. I was shaping you for something greater, teaching your spirit to depend, not on your strength, but on mine. I allowed the heaviness not to punish you, but to draw you into deeper communion with me. You see, while others saw your surface, I saw your struggle. I saw you worship when it hurt to lift your hands. I saw you give when you barely had anything left. I saw you choose kindness while bleeding inside. Every act of quiet obedience became incense before my throne. You may have thought no one cared, but I, your God, was moved by every unseen act of faithfulness. You were never invisible to me. And now, every hidden burden has been recorded in the story of your becoming. What was once your secret pain will soon become your sacred testimony. The weight you carrying did not bury you, it built you. I am lifting it now, piece by piece, for what once crushed you is about to crown you. I have seen your hidden labor, and I call it holy. You thought your faith was failing when it trembled, but child, trembling faith is still faith. I never demanded that your belief be unshakable. I only asked that you not let go, even when your hands shook. You whispered through tears, "I still believe," though your heart was uncertain, and I received that whisper as worship. When you doubted, I did not condemn you. I understood. You were not losing faith. You were learning what faith truly is, choosing me when nothing makes sense, trusting my heart when my hand seems hidden. You see, real faith is not the absence of fear or doubt. It is the decision to keep walking toward me even when the path disappears beneath your feet. When you questioned my timing, when you felt forgotten, when you wondered if my promises were for everyone but you, I was still there. I was watching your trembling soul reach for me in the dark, and heaven saw it as the purest form of worship. Faith that shakes but does not shatter is the kind that moves mountains, not because of its size, but because of its sincerity. You remember the moments you almost gave up praying. You thought I was silent, yet every word that escaped your lips echoed in eternity. I caught each one. You mistook delay for denial, but I was working in layers unseen. I was testing not your ability to perform, but your willingness to trust. And when your voice broke, when you said, "I don't even know if you hear me anymore," I whispered back, "I do." You just couldn't hear me through the noise of your pain. But I was there, closer than you dared to believe. Even when you wavered, I never wavered in my love for you. I didn't turn from your doubt. I used it to deepen your dependence. I don't despise fragile faith. I build upon it. When Peter sank in the waves, I didn't condemn him for falling. I reached out to prove that even sinking faith is safe in my hand. And just like him, you too have learned that grace is not earned by your strength, but revealed in your weakness. So when your faith trembled, I wasn't disappointed. I was moved. Because you stayed. Because even when you could not see me, you still searched for me. You thought your shaking disqualified you, but it only proved how deeply your heart longs for me. So hear me now. Trembling faith still pleases me, for it shows that when all else fails, your heart still knows who I am. Do you remember the moment you broke? The moment the weight became too heavy, the pain too deep, and you thought, "This is the end." That moment, that sacred, shattering point was not the end, but the beginning of something holy. You called it breaking, I called it meeting ground. You saw ashes, I saw an altar. For when everything else in you fell apart, what remained was the truest part of you, the part that could finally hear me without distraction. I met you there, not in your strength, but in your surrender. You thought I was far away when your tears soaked the floor, but that's where I drew closest. I have always been drawn to the sound of breaking hearts, for they echo the sound of my own when I hung upon the cross. I do not despise brokenness, I inhabit it. When your plans collapsed and your dreams dissolved, I bent low and whispered, I am still here. I turned your breaking into sacred ground because that's where transformation begins. The soil of your surrender became the place where my resurrection power took root. You see, I could have stopped the breaking, but I didn't. Not because I am cruel, but because I am purposeful. Some things can only be reborn once they are broken. A seed cannot grow unless its shell cracks. Likewise, the shell around your heart, fear, pride, control, self-reliance, had to fracture so that my spirit could breathe new life within you. You thought you were falling apart, but you were really being reshaped. Every fragment that fell away made room for me. I was not absent in your pain. I was present in it. I was teaching you that holiness is not found in perfection, but in surrender. You discovered me not on the mountaintop, but in the ruins, and that is where true intimacy begins. You met me in your tears, and I met you in your truth. And what was once the place of your breaking will soon become the place of your birthing. So never despise the breaking point, beloved. It is the threshold of my glory. You call it weakness, but I call it worship. For when you could do nothing else but fall into my arms, you finally learned what it means to rest in me completely. The ground you thought was soaked in defeat is now holy, consecrated by my presence and by your surrender. You did not break in vain. You broke into purpose. And I was there, watching, waiting, and whispering, "This is where we begin again." You called out to me, and all you heard was silence. The stillness unnerved you. It made you wonder if I had turned away, if perhaps your prayers had lost their power. But child, I was in the silence. I was not absent from you. I was resting within that quiet space, working in ways your eyes could not yet see. Silence is not my rejection. It is my language when words would be too small to hold what I'm creating. While you thought nothing was happening, everything was being aligned in heaven for your good. The silence was not emptiness. It was incubation. You wanted answers, but I wanted transformation. You sought quick relief, but I sought lasting revelation. So I hid myself, not to punish you, but to draw you deeper. For when you can no longer feel me, that is when I am teaching you to trust me. The silence was the furnace where your faith was purified, stripped of emotion, strengthened by endurance. You thought the quiet was cruel, but in truth, it was tender. I spoke, not through thunder, but through stillness. Every pause was deliberate, every delay was divine. I was not ignoring you. I was refining you. Do you remember when you said, "God, I can't hear you anymore"? That cry pierced the heavens. Yet, in the very moment I was whispering in ways too deep for words, through peace that defied understanding, through strength that kept you standing when you wanted to fall. My silence was not distance, it was depth. I was teaching your spirit to recognize my presence beyond feelings. For faith that depends only on what it senses is not faith at all. It is comfort. I wanted you to know me not as a fleeting presence, but as a dwelling place. And while you were waiting in that stillness, I was moving behind the veil. I was aligning hearts, orchestrating circumstances, preparing answers that would outlast your need. I heard every prayer, every sigh, every whispered why, and though my voice seemed gone, my hand never left you. I was closer in the silence than in the noise. So, child, do not despise the quiet seasons. They are sacred spaces where I rebuild your foundation. The silence was not proof that I was gone. It was proof that I trusted you enough to grow in faith. And now, what you thought was abandonment will soon reveal itself as strategy. The silence was me, shielding you from premature answers, protecting you from lesser things, and preparing you for what you truly prayed for. I was never silent because I didn't care. I was silent because I cared too deeply to speak too soon. There was a test you faced that no one knew about, the kind that didn't make headlines, didn't show in your eyes, didn't draw sympathy or applause. It was fought in the quiet corridors of your heart, in decisions you made when no one was watching. The world saw your smile, but I saw the battle behind it. You were being tested not in what was visible, but in what was hidden, in your thoughts, your motives, your choices when it would have been easier to compromise. The hardest tests are the ones that come with no recognition, no validation, only the quiet question echoing inside. Will you still love me here? I didn't test you to expose you. I tested you to reveal you, to show you what I already knew about you, what I had placed within you long before the storm began. You thought the test was about what you could endure, but it was about who you would become. When others walked away and you stayed, when you could have cursed me but chose to worship instead, when you forgave even though the wound was deep, that was the test. And I saw it all. Heaven saw you stand firm when no one noticed. Do you know what moved my heart most? Not that you were strong, but that you were surrendered. You allowed yourself to be broken and still believed that I was good. That kind of faith silences the enemy and fills all of heaven with awe. You were not just tested in your pain, you were tested in your response to it. And though you stumbled, you never quit. You kept walking through the dark, carrying a torch of trust that refused to die. The world measures success by outcomes. I measure it by obedience. You passed the test not because everything turned out well, but because you didn't turn away. The unseen tests are the most sacred, because they are the ones that shape the unseen parts of your soul: humility, integrity, love. These cannot be formed in comfort. They are forged in fire. And so, I honored your hidden test by engraving it into eternity. The angels stood watch as you chose me over ease, forgiveness over bitterness, purity over compromise. What no one applauded, heaven celebrated. You passed not because you never cried, but because you never stopped trying. Your test will one day be your testimony, not of how strong you were, but of how faithful I am. The test no one saw became the proof of the love no one can steal. You wonder how you made it through. You look back and see all the cracks, all the moments you almost gave up, and you still can't explain how you're standing. Let me tell you, you passed because you stayed. You didn't stay because it was easy. You stayed because somewhere deep inside, you still believed I was worth it. You stayed through tears, through silence, through betrayal and confusion. You stayed when you didn't understand. You stayed when others walked away. That is what victory looks like in my kingdom, not perfection, but perseverance. You think I needed flawless devotion to be pleased with you, but no, what moved me most was your endurance. Every time you chose to stay instead of run, you declared to the darkness, my faith is not for sale. When you stood on shaky legs and whispered, I still trust you, heaven recorded it as triumph. You may not have felt strong, but child, faith is not measured by how loud you roar. It is measured by how long you endure. When your heart broke and you stayed, when your prayers seemed unanswered and you still bowed before me, you passed the test. You proved that love for me was not built on blessings but on belonging. You stayed, not because everything made sense, but because deep down you knew, even in the chaos, that I am faithful, and that truth anchored you more securely than any miracle ever could. You didn't stay by your own strength. I held you when you thought you were holding on to me. Every time you whispered, "God, I can't do this," I strengthened your grip. You didn't fail in the moments you fell. You passed in the moments you refused to let go. The enemy wanted to convince you that breaking meant losing. But I tell you, staying was your victory. Now look at you, scarred, yes, but still standing, bruised but unbroken. You stayed through what was meant to destroy you, and because you did, I can now trust you with greater glory. What you endured has qualified you for what's next. The very endurance that once felt like punishment is now your crown. You didn't pass because you never stumbled. You passed because you refused to walk away. You are living proof that faith that stays is faith that wins. And I, your God, call your endurance beautiful. You don't know what heaven saw in those nights when you worshiped through your weeping. The angels, those radiant beings who have seen my glory unveiled, stood in reverent silence as they watched you, a fragile vessel of dust, lift trembling hands in praise while your heart was breaking. They have witnessed the creation of stars and the fall of kingdoms, but what they beheld in you left them in awe. They cannot understand faith that sings in suffering. They cannot fathom love that clings to me when all seems lost. Yet there you were, surrounded by pain and confusion, still whispering, "I trust you." That moment shook heaven more deeply than thunder. Do you realize what that did to my heart? The angels who forever cry, "Holy, holy, holy," paused, not because I demanded it, but because they saw holiness manifest in you, the kind of holiness that only pain can refine. You stood as a living testimony to the mystery of faith, that love for me can exist even without understanding, even without reward. They saw you press through despair and still choose to believe. And as they watched, they covered their faces, not because you were perfect, but because they recognized the reflection of my Son in you. When Jesus wept in Gethsemane, the angels witnessed that too. They saw divine surrender, love clothed in agony. And when they looked at you, in your hidden moments of breaking, they saw the same surrender repeating across time, a human heart choosing trust over bitterness, love over logic, worship over weariness. Heaven marveled because such worship is rare even among the redeemed. You became a melody in heaven's halls that only broken hearts can sing. You thought no one noticed your midnight tears, but I tell you, all of heaven leaned in. They did not see weakness, they saw wonder. For in that moment, creation itself glimpsed its Creator's reflection within you. When you chose to love me despite the pain, you preached a sermon angels could not speak. You displayed what the enemy has never understood, that love rooted in free will is stronger than pride, stronger than rebellion, stronger than pain. And I, your God, rejoiced, not because you were suffering, but because you revealed something sacred, that faith is not about having answers, but about holding on to me when none exist. The angels stood in awe, and I called them to witness your perseverance, saying, "Behold what love can do when refined by fire." You were not unseen. You were celebrated in heaven. Your tears became jewels in eternity's crown, and your worship, born from pain, still echoes in the halls of glory. Every scar you carry tells a story I have already redeemed. You once looked at your wounds and saw only failure, loss, and shame, but I see proof that pain could not destroy what I placed inside you. The enemy tried to make your suffering your identity, but I transformed it into your evidence. Your pain became the ink with which I wrote your testimony. Each season that once brought you to tears is now a monument of victory, proof that grace is stronger than grief. You didn't just survive what broke you. You were transformed by it. Do you remember when you thought the pain would never end? You said, "This will define me forever." And I said, "Yes, but not how you think." For every bruise that darkness caused, I infused with light. I used what wounded you to reveal what could not be destroyed. The scar is not shame. It is the signature of resurrection. The same power that raised my son from the grave has been breathing through your broken places, turning them into proof of divine endurance. You thought you were shattered beyond repair, but I was building something eternal within those cracks. You see, proof is not born from ease. It is birthed in endurance. I didn't remove every thorn because I wanted the world to see that my grace truly is sufficient. I wanted your story to declare, "I made it," not because I was strong, but because He was faithful. Every scar, every tear, every sleepless night became a testimony written on the canvas of your soul. You don't need to hide your pain anymore. It's holy now. It speaks of my goodness louder than your victories ever could. When others see your scars, they will see proof of my touch. What once caused you to hide will soon be what I use to heal others. You will speak from places you once avoided, and your voice will carry weight because it's been refined by fire. That's why I allowed the pain, not to break you, but to authenticate you. I turned what was meant for evil into evidence that I never left. So when you look at your scars, see them as I do, proof of covenant, not curse. Proof that my promises outlast pain. Proof that suffering may visit, but it cannot conquer. The cross was the ultimate pain, yet it became eternal proof of my love. In the same way, your pain has become your proof. You are not marked by defeat. You are marked by deliverance. You thought the trial was only about loss, but it was about revelation. Hidden within your suffering was a treasure, something far greater than comfort or answers. You were asking me to remove the fire, but I was using the fire to refine your gold. The reward was not outside the trial. It was hidden inside it. While you prayed for escape, I was shaping expansion. I allowed the pressure because it was birthing the promise. Without the crushing, the oil of anointing could not flow. I watched as you fought through the storm, not realizing that every gust of wind was pushing you toward destiny. You thought you were being stripped, but I was revealing what could not be taken from you. The reward I prepared was not just deliverance, it was discovery. In the fire, you discovered your resilience. In the storm, you discovered your authority. In the wilderness, you discovered me. But you thought with a panic it would have you leave promotion. Every test was tailored to unlock what I had hidden inside your spirit long before the battle began. Do you know what the trial did for you? It purified your motives. It burned away what was shallow and left what was eternal. You prayed for breakthrough, but the real breakthrough was in your becoming. The reward is not just what you receive. It's who you become through trusting me in the dark. You emerged stronger, wiser, and more compassionate, not in spite of the trial, but because of it. The enemy tried to convince you that the pain meant I had left, but now you see, I was with you the entire time, turning every blow into a blessing. The very thing that was meant to destroy you became the doorway to your destiny. And the reward, it's not just healing, it's authority. It's peace that no storm can steal. It's joy that doesn't depend on circumstance. You carry now a depth that can only come from surviving what you thought would end you. So don't look back with bitterness, look back with understanding. The reward was never separate from the trial. It was hidden in it, like diamonds inside rock. You had to be pressed to find it. And now that you've endured, I am revealing what the struggle was preparing you for. The reward is revelation, seeing me as I truly am, and seeing yourself as I've always seen you. Unshakable, chosen, victorious. The trial didn't take from you, it delivered you to yourself. I saw what was taken from you. The relationships that faded, the dreams that shattered, the years that seemed stolen by pain or delay. You thought those losses defined the limits of your future. But I tell you, nothing that truly belongs to you and my purpose can ever be lost beyond my redemption. What you call bond, I call bonded. What you call wasted, I call woven. For every loss that cut deeply, I have prepared a restoration that runs deeper still. You cried over what slipped through your fingers, but I was catching every fragment, shaping them into something new. The thief thought he was stealing from you. He did not realize he was delivering the raw material for your greater blessing. I am the God who redeems, not by returning things as they were, but by restoring them in ways that exceed what was before. You mourn what ended, but I am birthing what cannot end. I do not simply give back the same. I give back multiplied, refined, resurrected. When Job lost everything, the world saw loss, but I saw foundation. I saw a man I could trust with double. And just like Job, I am not done with your story. What you lost was not wasted, it was seed. Seed must fall, must break, must disappear beneath the soil before it bears fruit. So, too, did your tears water the ground for the harvest I've been preparing. You have asked me, why did you allow it to be taken? And I answer you with tenderness, because I was making room for what could not fit where you were. You held on to temporary things, but I was preparing you for eternal ones. You lost what was fragile, so I could give you what is unshakable. I am not cruel in my pruning. I am intentional. What I cut away, I redeem with glory. You thought you were being emptied, but I was clearing space for fullness. Redemption is not an event, it is a revelation. You will see it unfold piece by piece until you recognize that I never let one moment of your pain go unaccounted for. I redeem time, opportunities, relationships, purpose. Nothing is beyond my reach. You will one day look back and say, it had to happen this way. For only through the breaking could beauty rise. Only through loss could your heart learn the value of what cannot be taken. So, lift your eyes again, beloved. What was stolen will be returned, not in the same form, but in divine form. I am weaving restoration into your story, and every thread of loss is becoming gold in my hands. You will see that I am not just the God who gives, I am the God who redeems all that was ever lost. You thought breaking was your ending, but I designed it as your becoming. The rise always follows the breaking, for resurrection can only come after the cross. I never allowed you to be shattered to destroy you. I allowed it to reveal who you truly are. What you called defeat was actually preparation. The pieces that fell were the ones that could not go with you into the next season. I was not dismantling your life. I was rebuilding your identity. You had to break so that what was false could fall away and what was eternal could stand. Do you remember the moment you thought you would never recover? You whispered, I'll never be the same again. And you were right, but not in the way you feared. You are not the same because you have risen stronger, purer, and more aware of me than ever before. You now carry resurrection in your spirit, that quiet, fierce knowing that no darkness is final. You have learned that death in one form often births life in another. The breaking stripped you of illusion, but it also unveiled your anointing. Your rise began the moment you stopped fighting the breaking. When you surrendered, you gave me permission to breathe life into the dust. I took the same hands that once trembled in despair and strengthened them to rebuild. You have been remade from the inside out, and that is why your new strength confuses the enemy, because it doesn't come from you. It comes from me. The same Spirit that raised Jesus from the grave now lives within you, lifting you beyond what tried to bury you. And now, beloved, look at yourself. You rise not with pride, but with peace. You carry scars, yes, but they shine with glory. You have compassion you did not have before, wisdom born from pain, discernment refined by fire. You rise not in anger, but in authority. You can now speak life into others who are still in the breaking because you've known both the grave and the glory. So, do not mourn what you lost in the breaking. Celebrate who you became through it. You thought you would rise empty, but you rise crowned. The breaking was not your undoing. It was your unveiling. And now, I declare over you, your rise has come. You are no longer the one who fell. You are the one who rose. And no power in hell can ever bring down what I have resurrected. Now hear me, child of endurance, child of grace. You passed my hardest test. I watched you break, but I also watched you believe. You thought you failed because you wept, because you doubted, because you stumbled under the weight. But I was never looking for flawless strength. I was looking for faithful surrender. And you gave me that. You passed not by might, not by perfection, but by love, by staying when you could have run, by trusting when nothing made sense, by holding on when the world said let go. You passed because your heart refused to turn from me even in the dark. Do you understand now what your breaking produced? You carry the fragrance of endurance, the mark of one who has walked through fire and come out carrying light. You are not fragile anymore, you are forged. Heaven knows your name. Hell trembles at your persistence. The angels remember your worship in the night and still echo your song. You are no longer defined by what you lost, but by what you became through loss, chosen, proven, unshakably mine. When I said the test would be hard, I meant it would touch everything that defines you. But I never meant for it to destroy you. I designed it to reveal what the enemy could never steal, your faith. You have now walked through fire and discovered that the flame purifies but cannot consume what belongs to me. You have come out not burned but shining. The test was not about pain, it was about proof. Proof that your heart was fully mine. And now, as your Father and your God, I make this divine declaration over you. You are not broken, you are built. You are not forgotten, you are favored. You are not forsaken, you are chosen for greater glory. You are my masterpiece, refined by the hardest trial, then radiant with the evidence of grace. I call you victorious, not because you never fell, but because you rose every time. Child, the test is over. The waiting is done. The season of proving has passed, and the season of promise has begun. You stood through the storm, and now you will walk in still waters. What was meant to bury you became the very ground of your resurrection. So lift your head. The heavens are rejoicing. You passed my hardest test, and now I declare over you what all eternity already knows. You are mine, forever, completely, and gloriously mine. Amen.